So the girl I wanted to marry married someone else, broke my heart, right? And I wound up going to Regent College, Vancouver, because my heart was broken. And it looked like I was getting a master's degree, and that was true. But I went there because it was a really safe place to be a wreck. So, and I thought I'd ruined everything. I thought I'd destroyed everything. And, if I told you the stories of how I met this girl, you would say it's obviously the Lord, and it did not happen. And so I thought that I destroyed something. And the Lord sent me to that school because it was a place, and I was struggling with liberal theology and wanting to deal with the critique of the liberal critics in an evangelical manner. And there were only maybe 2 or 3 places on the continent that did that. Regent was one of them. So I wound up going there. And in this last trip to Vancouver, I wound up going to the place where I fell in love with my wife. And it happened in a dingy basement apartment when us 4 guys did a little supper the day before Valentine's Day. And all of us had someone beside us. And I looked at all the other girls in the room and I said, they're not for me. That's the one, right? And I realized I loved her. But there was a definitive moment, and this was the definitive moment. And I sent a picture of a beach to you, to Neil, all right? So I used to jog on Locarno Beach all the way up to Kits Beach. It's a beautiful place. It's Locarno Beach is the one without sound. Spanish Banks is the one where you can play your music. But Locarno Beach was quiet, and I jogged there, right? And I did every day. It was a big hill down and a big hill back, and I became really good at running because going up the hill was really hard. Going down the hill was easy, but going up was hard. Anyway, the bottom line was, hey, Charlie, good to see you. Anyway, what happened was there was one day I had a birthday, and I was older than anybody else in the room, and they all had serious girlfriends. And Elizabeth had told me she cared for me far more than a brother. And I didn't know what to process with that because she was my best friend. She was my buddy, but I didn't have, I said, romantic inclinations. She was just a buddy. I used to pray with her about everything. We do all kinds of things together. We were buds, and she told me, and I thought, I don't want to lose my best friend, and I don't want to lie to my best friend. I can't lie. I'm not going to do that. And so I said to her that I would pray about whether this whole thing, and I did with all seriousness. And I had this barrier in my heart because I had given myself to another and it was destroyed. And I think I thought I was the one who destroyed it. I'm not sure if that's true, but that's the way I was feeling at the time. But it was gone. It was blown up. It was destroyed. It was shattered. It was ruined. And I thought I'd wreck the rest of my life. I did. And so I was sitting in my room, and I had my birthday, and I was ticked because I had another birthday and I was not a married man. The Lord had told me I would have a wife, and there was this girl who cared for me, and I didn't have emotional attachment to her. It was not the same kind of thing. She was my buddy, but she wasn't my lover, And so I said, okay, that's it. I am going to go down to the beach. And I'm going to find my wife sitting on a log on the beach, I said to God. That's what I said. It was an ugly, horrible, nasty, manipulative, unclean, witchcraft kind of prayer. So I said that, and I was getting out to do my 7-minute run down to the beach. And my roommate, Ben, stops me. And he says, it's time to pay the rent. I said, I'm going to the beach. I'm going now. He said, you got to pay the rent. It's due now. So I don't want to pay. So I argued with him. And then I couldn't find my checkbook. I had put it somewhere that I couldn't remember where I put it. So I'm looking all over the room, and finally I find the checkbook. And I write the check, and I give him the rent, and I take the checkbook, and I throw it back in the room, and it lodges behind a bunch of books. And so I'm just about to go, and he says, wait, we have to pay you for the sponsored child. I said, I'm going to the beach. He said, no, you're not going to the beach. You got to get me a check for the sponsored child. So I had to find the checkbook, and I couldn't find it because it was somewhere in the room. Meanwhile, Elizabeth was praying in her apartment, and the Holy Spirit landed on her and said, go to the beach. Go to the beach. Go now. Go to the beach. And she said, it's 3:30, come on 4. I don't want to go to the beach that time of the day. Go to the beach. Go now. So she turned to her roommate and said, I don't know why. Jesus wants me to go to the beach. So she walks to the beach while I'm delayed. She had a 15-minute walk. I had a 7-minute walk. And So I eventually find the checkbook. I pay my roommate, and I walk to the beach, and I'm standing on the shores of the Pacific Ocean as the water is washing in, and I'm repenting of my silly prayer. I'm repenting, and I'm telling the Lord, isn't this a terrible thing? I have sinned against you by praying the ugly prayer. And I'm actually composing a song, and I'm singing the songs over the top of the waves. And I look around the beach because I'm singing. I thought, there's nobody here. The beach is empty. It's 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon in Vancouver. And everybody stops working at 12 noon. They're always on the beach on Friday, and it's warm. Except there's one person. Somebody's sitting on a log on the beach. And I said, that hoodie looks awfully familiar. It can't be the only person on earth who told me she cares for me. It just couldn't. No, it's not possible. That I had not met anybody on that beach I knew. Vancouver's a city of 2.5 million. And I'd run down that beach every day for exercise. And I'd never met anybody I knew. And the beach was empty. And there's one person on the beach. And the Spirit said, go over there. So I walked over. And it was her sitting on a log. I said, Elizabeth, what are you doing sitting on this log? She said, what's the craziest thing? I was sitting in my apartment and the Holy Spirit told me to sit on a log on the beach. I said, when did that come to you? She said, about 20 minutes ago. I said, really? And the day before, my brother and I had spoken about what he does for a living. He was one of these guys who'd walk through woodlots and determine from the depth of the bark whether or not the tree was ready to be harvested. He was a forester. And he told me about different kinds of tree bark. I said, well, listen, it's late now. Come back with me to my place. I'll give you your lift home. And so all the way back, I talked about tree bark because I was terrified. And in the course of about 3 months, my feelings changed. It took about 3 months. And then I realized she was my very best friend. And you got to marry your best friend. And then the romantic feelings started to happen and so on. But I just was at that beach. And I was just revisiting Regent College because I went there to drop off 2 of my books to the bookstore. And the Regent feels small now. It used to feel so big, but it feels very small now. And it's like that's done. But it was the place where the Lord healed my heart. And it was the place where I saw my wife sitting on a log on the beach. And I believe the plan is better. It's far better than it was before. And so I sent that thing about Kitts Beach. It's one beach over from Locarno Beach, but it was the same seashore where the Lord redeemed and put that girl on that log on that beach after I prayed the ugly prayer. Oh man, that was one of the most manipulative prayers I ever prayed in my entire life. You don't tell God what to do; you submit to what the Lord speaks to you. But he spoke David to David. That's what he did. I said, I got to find my wife sitting on the log on the beach. And it was the only girl who ever said she cared for me sitting on that log. So it became very clear God was talking. And I'm amazed by that.